Hello, and welcome to day 9 of the alcohol experiment. Today's chapter is called The Power of Self-Talk. My name is Melissa O'Malley, and I'm reading straight from The Alcohol Experiment by Annie Grace. This is a longer chapter. We have the power of self-talk, and then we have an ACT exercise on alcohol, our culture, and society. So it's a longer one. Hopefully it goes okay. Reading out loud is not like the easiest thing in the world for me, but here we are. We've been doing it. I've been doing it. Let's hop right in. We start with a quote. This quote is by Gary Hensel. It says, "I am two of the most powerful words. For what you put after them shapes your reality." If you've ever tried to make a change in your life or start a new habit, you know how easily negative thinking and self-talk can defeat your best intentions. You can start the day strong and full of optimism, but as the day wears on, the voice in your head can get louder and more insistent until it becomes easier to give in. Sometimes it can feel like there's a constant loop of negativity playing in your head, over and over, louder and louder. It's possible you've been experiencing this your whole life in lots of different ways. The good news is that you can change it. The better news is it's not difficult, though it may take some time and practice. Awareness is key. Let's talk about becoming aware of your self-talk. Recognizing what you're telling yourself is the first step. And one way to become deeply aware of how you're talking to yourself is to imagine that the voice inside you that's chattering it up is actually another person. Imagine they're sitting in the chair next to you and just listen objectively. Let them chatter on for a little while. Would you ever let a real person talk to you like that? Would you sit down and listen to all those negative stories? And would you humor them as they went on and on and on? Of course not. You would never in a million years let someone sit next to you and never shut up about everything that's wrong with you. Once you personify that voice in your head as an actual individual, you realize how intense and incessant it is. Simply by becoming aware of this self-talk, you have unlocked the door to changing it. Research shows that most of our thinking is recycled from the day before. In fact, up to 80% of your thoughts from today were probably also thoughts you had yesterday. I'm going to reread that because that's amazing. Research shows were probably also thoughts you had yesterday. We often give in to what our inner voice is saying simply because it's so repetitive. And repetition masks itself as truth. When something becomes familiar to us, like a thought pattern, we believe it because it's familiar. This is how advertising works. The more often you see an ad on TV or in a magazine, the more likely you are to believe its claims. So whatever you're telling yourself over and over again, eventually you're going to start believing it, even if it's blatantly not true. Self-talk and cravings. During this experiment, you might be doing a lot of self-talk. I actually want you to recognize 2 different types. You have the self-talk that is conniving, that will do anything to convince you to pick up a drink. This type of self-talk involves both justifications and comparisons. We'll repeatedly tell ourselves that we need the alcohol, that we won't be okay without it, that we won't be able to sleep without it, and that just one won't hurt. It's also easy to justify our own drinking when we compare our behavior to other people's. If you're a regular drinker, you might say, well, at least I'm never fall down drunk, or at least I'm not as bad as so and so. If you're a binge drinker, you might say, well, at least I don't drink every night. Notice if you're making these kinds of comparisons. Some other self-talk you might be hearing in your head includes things such as, this is too hard. This has already been too difficult. I'm not going to be successful, so I might as well give up now. All these things are just stories that you tell yourself. And because you repeat them so often, you don't hear them anymore. You just accept them as true. So you have to stop and hear them again by becoming aware of what you're telling yourself. That way, you can make a conscious decision about whether they're actually true. Some people who've been through this process find it helpful to personify the repetitive voice. They call it the wine witch or the alcohol monster. When you see this voice as something that's not you, it's easier to see through its manipulation. It's not really you. Here's how to recognize that the voice is not really you. It tells repetitive stories. It has a single aim to get you to drink. It is one-sided and manipulative. You are stronger than the voice, and it will quickly weaken when you recognize it for what it is and put some distance between you and it. Give it some space. It's very noisy, I get that, but its bark is worse than its bite. It has no actual power over you. It's that little child in the backseat of the car who is desperate for an ice cream. She's not going to give in easily, but ultimately, you're in charge. Self talk and self worth. The other type of self talk, which is possibly more insidious, is the constant negative dialogue we have in our own minds toward ourselves. This is when we beat ourselves up and are harder on ourselves than we would ever be on another human. Here's the thing, you did not create yourself. Think about that for a minute. You are here, you are breathing, but you did not choose to be here breathing. You didn't create your beating heart or your hair color or anything else about you. And because of that, you have no right to treat yourself badly. No right. That's the most important thing to realize. Anytime you catch yourself in negative self talk or beating yourself up, take out a notebook or your phone and write down what you're saying. Write the exact words, then read them out loud. Would you ever say that to a child or your mother or a good friend? If not, then stop saying it to yourself. You owe it to the universe or God or whoever you believe created you to treat yourself nicely. It's not enough to just repeat a positive mantra a few times a day. When you can actually talk to yourself like you would talk to your own child or another loved one, you will find that your whole life will shift direction. I'm not talking about now and then. I'm talking about all that repetitive chatter on in your brain. Use words and tones that you would use with that loved one all the time. Becoming aware of how you speak to yourself is the first step. The second step is actually changing how you speak to yourself. Most people think this is difficult because they've been beating themselves up for so long that it's become a habit. And you can't get rid of a habit easily because it's a neurological connection in your brain. It's an unconscious loop that repeats itself over and over. By definition, a habit happens without thinking. It's unconscious behavior. Once you wake yourself up and become aware of the habit, you have to make a conscious decision to change it. And to do that, you have to rewire the neurological connections in your brain with new behaviors. It does take effort, but it's completely worth it. The power of gratitude. What helped me get out of the habit of negative self talk was gratitude. I consciously bring to mind everything I'm grateful for, even the dumbest little things. If I'm writing in my journal, I might notice the pen and think, I'm thankful that I can write. I'm grateful that I can read and convey my thoughts on paper. Oh, look, there's the sky. The clouds are beautiful and I love how they look against the blue. I'm so grateful that I'm alive and I can see and appreciate nature's beauty. In addition to running through this exercise whenever you become aware of negative self-talk, you can also pick a time every day to stop and think over the last 24 hours and find 3 to 5 things you're grateful for. Here's the kicker. You're probably not going to feel grateful. You'll probably feel cheesy at first. You might think, I don't feel grateful. I feel angry at myself, which is why I was giving myself such a hard time about my behavior. It doesn't matter if you feel it. It works anyway. You're suggesting to your subconscious that there's a different pattern it can use. There's a different way to talk to yourself. You're rewiring your brain to look for the positive in everything, and that changes your habit. Trust that you are making changes in your brain, even if you don't feel the results at first. Studies have shown that this simple gratitude exercise can improve your overall happiness in all areas of your life. And I can say, in my experience, that's absolutely true, but it takes practice and patience. So be nice to yourself, okay? Today, let's do a writing exercise to help you become aware of your negative self talk. This is adapted for our purposes from Byron Katie's process of questioning our thinking called The Work, thework.com. Let's expose your repetitive stories for what they are and diffuse them in your subconscious. Your feelings are preceded by subconscious beliefs. So, whenever you start to feel anxious or bad, you can work backward to uncover the belief that's causing the feeling. Once you know the belief, you can use the simple strategy below to help let it go. Step one, identify that you are not feeling your best and use that as a signal to listen to the voice inside of your head. What are you thinking right now? What are the thoughts going through your mind? What are the exact words and phrases you used? Write them all down. Step two, ask yourself, what are the beliefs or stories underlying these thoughts? Step three, instead of trying to combat these stories or beliefs directly, be sneaky and just ask yourself how they make you feel. Step four, look at the situation and ask yourself how you would feel without those thoughts. Imagine how the moment would feel if you couldn't tell yourself those stories or have those beliefs. What if they just disappeared from your mind? How would you feel? What would be different? Here's an example. 1. What are you feeling and thinking? I'm feeling anxious. My chest is tight and I have a sort of tingling running through me. My muscles are tight. These feelings give me pause, so I back up and listen to my thoughts or self talk. I might hear, I'm never going to get ahead at work. I need a beer. Or, my kids are out of control. I can't believe I haven't figured out how to get them to behave. Is it 5 o'clock yet? I can't wait to open that bottle of wine I bought this morning. Or, everyone else seems so much happier than I do. What's wrong with me? I'll pour myself this drink and that will help. 2, what stories and beliefs are underlying the thought that I need a drink? I believe a drink would help me feel better right now because I think alcohol will help me relax and deal with the stressors of my life. I want to numb these uncomfortable feelings, and I know alcohol can do that. 3, how do these stories and beliefs make me feel? Specifically, you might consider how the thought, I need a drink, feels in the context of doing this experiment and the fact that you're not drinking right now. I feel uncomfortable and upset. I feel deprived. I feel weak when I think I need to have a drink to help me relax. I know that the facts say I won't actually relax. I feel like giving in now will actually make me feel worse. 4, how would you feel without these thoughts? What if you simply couldn't think that you need a drink? How would you be feeling? It might sound like this. I'm in a challenging situation, and yes, there are difficulties, but they aren't compounded by this sense of struggle over drinking. Or this, my mind is free to focus on ways to feel better that don't involve alcohol. There's a huge level of stress and anxiety you're building up here because you're feeling this inner conflict of wanting something you've decided that for now you're not going to have. When you become aware of these conflicting emotions, I want to drink, I'm taking a break from drinking, an amazing thing happens. Your subconscious mind identifies these feelings as painful and naturally lets them go. It's like when you're a toddler and an adult says, "Don't touch that stove, it's hot." At first, you don't know what those words mean, so you have to touch it. You have no reason not to. But once you touch the stove and burn yourself, you're never going to touch it on purpose again. It hurts. That lesson becomes deeply ingrained in your subconscious, and you never have to think about not touching a hot stove ever again. It's the same phenomenon that happens when you simply ask yourself the question, how do I feel when I believe this story? When you believe that you need alcohol to relax, but you're not allowing yourself to drink, or when you believe you need alcohol to have a good time and you're not allowing yourself to drink, how does that feel? This exercise works because it reveals to your subconscious mind how painful certain stories and beliefs are. Your subconscious says, oh, those feelings are painful. And then this miraculous thing happens. Your subconscious mind naturally lets go of the belief because it identifies the belief as painful. We aren't always aware of our self talk, and that is why emotions, even the negative ones, are such a gift. Emotions are the signal that something in our thinking is causing stress. Your job is simply to listen to your thoughts, identify the thoughts causing you stress, and question them. If this works for you and you want to know more about this amazing technique, I highly recommend Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. Day 9 journal questions. Remember, all the wisdom you seek is actually inside you. The most important words in this experiment are the ones you tell yourself. Take some time and answer these questions in a journal, a voice memo to yourself, or simply by speaking the answers out loud for only you to hear. 1. Identify your inner dialogue. Take a minute to think about what you regularly say to yourself. Write it down. If you can't think of anything, wait until the next time you feel anxious or uncomfortable. Use this as a signal to stop and listen to what you're saying inside your head. What are the exact words and phrases you used? 2. Question your inner dialogue. Now that you have a list of things to say to yourself, Now that you have a list of things you say to yourself, ask yourself the following questions and write down your responses. 1. Would I say this to someone I love? A child? A friend? Would I even say this to a stranger? 2. How does this make me feel? And 3. How does this make me behave? 3. You have so much power. This is such an enlightening exercise, and you truly have the power to change how you talk to you. Take a moment to appreciate the awareness you've brought to your inner voice, even if you've realized some of the things you've been saying to yourself are painful. Now you can change them. Write down a list of new things to begin to say to yourself. Make sure you actually believe them. It doesn't do you any good to tell yourself, I'm amazing, if you don't actually believe it. And then reflect on how it would make you feel and behave if you said these new things to yourself regularly. It's important work. And I will say, as a counselor, identifying and managing self talk is like one of the main things that I do in my work with clients. So now we have ACT number 4, which is awareness, clarity, turnaround, number 4, called Alcohol, Our Culture, and Society. Ugh. Awareness. We all have an evolutionary need to fit in with a group. It's a survival mechanism. We even have something called mirror neurons in our brains. If we see someone yawn, stretch, or scratch their nose, we're likely to do the same thing. Humans evolved to fit in with others. Think about it. When a prisoner has the harshest punishment inflicted, it's solitary confinement. Being separated from the group is the worst thing we can think of to punish a criminal. Let's name this belief. If I don't drink, I won't be part of the group. So it makes total sense that to fit in with an alcohol-obsessed society, we must be drinkers. But let's break that down so you can decide whether that's something you want to continue. Clarity. It's pretty easy to figure out where this belief comes from. We all observe evidence of this every single day. Our cultural conditioning practically demands we drink. We see alcohol all around us, even at church and school functions. Every baby shower, birthday party, wedding, and funeral has some form of alcohol available. All our friends, family members, and authority figures drink. Therefore, I should drink too, just to be considered normal. The same attitude used to be true of cigarettes. Do you remember? People smoked because it was just the thing to do. Everyone smoked. Doctors even recommended their favorite brands. That was the reality at one point. Of course, we now know that smoking is dangerous and never should have been encouraged in the first place. And only after many decades of pressure has smoking become denormalized. Now, smokers are shunned in restaurants, public buildings, and social events. They're forced to go outside to smoke. Don't think the alcohol industry doesn't know this. It spends billions of dollars each year in the United States alone on advertising to make sure we get the message loud and clear. Cool people drink. Funny people drink. Sexy people drink. And now, thanks to a new trend in alcohol marketing, fit people drink. That's right, the newest trend is to associate drinking with good health. Yoga studios have wine tastings. Low carb beer brands spend millions on Super Bowl commercials with hard body athletes. And articles circulate on the internet about how this wine or that spirit can prevent everything from cancer to Alzheimer's disease. So, according to the media, if you want to be cool, sexy, funny, and fit, you'd better be a drinker. We've also experienced that feeling of fitting in when we drink with our friends, right? It's fun. We feel cool, at least for a little while. Whether we're pounding beers at a baseball game or sipping champagne at a classical music festival, it doesn't matter. When our friends are gathered around us, we're all drinking and having a great time. We fit in. The advertising works so well because it mimics our everyday behavior. Or maybe we behave the way we do because the advertising works so well. Either way, order around, either way, order another round. It's halftime. Never mind the consequences in a few hours or the next morning. Never mind the arguments with your spouse or the lost memories or the raging hangover. You've got to be part of the crowd. So, yes, you probably drink to fit in. And yes, it's a cultural phenomenon. Society's views of non drinkers is that they're boring, they're buzzkills, they aren't any fun to be around. I find this hilarious now because I'm still the life of the party, even without a drink in my hand. The truth is, the funny people are funny whether they're drinking or not, and the lame people aren't any more interesting just because they're loaded. But the mind is a powerful thing, and since we believe drinkers are more fun, they seem to be. And so we drink, even when we might not want to, and we pressure others to drink, mostly to justify our own choices. When I wrote This Naked Mind, over 7,000 people volunteered to read it and give their feedback. I was shocked to hear that so many of them thought they were alone in their struggle to control their alcohol consumption. They all thought that they were the only ones struggling. They thought if they questioned how much they were drinking, people would make fun of them or cast them out of their circle of friends. So they kept the problem hidden, often even from themselves. One of the main reasons people say that they can take it or leave it is because they've never tried to leave it. Once I was honest about my drinking, suddenly others felt like it was okay to question their drinking too. They worried about the effects on their health their families, but were too afraid to talk about it. In the years since I wrote that book, I've discovered that the people who defend their drinking the loudest are often the most worried about how much they drink. They desperately want to have the same amount of fun while drinking less, but they don't see how it's possible. The cultural conditioning is that strong. I also want us to ask, what kind of culture are we creating by choosing to be a part of it? It's not popular to talk about, but there's a lot of evidence that an alcohol saturated culture is actually a culture of violence. According to published studies, in 86% of homicide cases, the perpetrator was drinking at the time of the murder. Or what about domestic violence? Wait, that's crazy. In 86% of homicide cases, the perpetrator was drinking. Or what about domestic violence? 57% of the men involved in marital violence were drinking. 75% of cases in which a child died from abuse involved alcohol. There's a hotline in the UK that children can call to have a bedtime story read to them if their parents are too drunk to do it. How heartbreaking is that? As a new mother of a baby girl, I'm horrified to hear the alcohol related statistics for alcohol assault. What? Sorry. I'm going to read that again. As a new mother of a baby girl, I'm horrified to hear the alcohol related statistics for sexual assault. 60% of sexual offenders were drinking at the time of the offense, and sexual assault is at an all time high. In fact, if you look at the rise in alcohol consumption and the rise in violent crime, they track each other pretty closely. As drinking rates rise, so do the cultural ramifications. Is that the kind of culture we truly want to fit into? I know it sounds like I want to wipe alcohol off the planet, but that's not the case. What I want is for us as a culture to be more mindful of the consequences and think carefully about what we're choosing to promote as normal. Because you're part of this experiment, you have a unique opportunity to be a mindful observer and decide for yourself. Consider whether you can enjoy life and have just as much fun with your family and friends if you're not drinking. Turnaround. The opposite of if I don't drink, I won't be part of the group is if I don't drink, I will still be part of the group. Or if I drink, I won't be part of the group. Come up with as many ways as you can that the opposites are as true or truer in your life than the original beliefs. Fitting in during the experiment. You might be worried that if you stop drinking, you'll lose all your friends, even if it's only for this 30-day experiment. This can be especially challenging if you believe you'll be boring without the alcohol. Since you're not making any immediate decisions about the rest of your life, let's talk about how to get through this experiment while keeping your friendships intact. 1. Don't preach. Nobody wants to hear all your research into the dangers of alcohol. They already know most of it, trust me. And at this point, they don't want to be harassed about it. I became an anti-alcohol evangelist at first, and people pitied my husband for having to put up with me. If people ask you about the experiment, give them a brief summary to answer their questions, and maybe point them to this book. Staying low-key will do more good than making them feel like you're judging them. If they want to make a change with their own drinking, they're already judging themselves. 2. Be a positive example. Show your friends that you can have just as much fun without drinking and without talking about it all the time. Period. Let them see for themselves that you simply don't want to drink right now, and that's okay. Again, your friends may feel that by not drinking, you're judging their behavior. Even if this isn't true, they may still think it. So don't isolate them. Be friendly as ever. Let them know you're doing this for you, and don't try to force the idea on them. 3. Be creative. You don't have to tell anyone you're not drinking for 30 days. If you're worried about how your friends will react, don't say anything. It's a personal decision, so keep it to yourself for now. There are lots of ways to explain why you might not be drinking on a particular evening. Here are some of my favorites from our community. I can't tonight, I'm driving. I overdid it last night, so I'm taking the night off. I'm on a detox that doesn't allow alcohol. I'm watching my weight. I'm trying to cut back. I'm doing an alcohol-free challenge. I don't feel like it tonight. I have an important meeting tomorrow, so I want to keep a clear head. If you do decide to continue this 30-day experiment for 60 days, 90 days, or indefinitely, you will eventually want to tell your friends what's going on. And chances are that many of them won't get it. They won't understand. But that doesn't mean that they will stop being friends with you. It can take time, but eventually most of them will accept your decision. Keep it all about you, not them. This is a challenge you've made for yourself. Make sure they know you aren't going to impose your new beliefs on them. Here are some of the phrases I've used. I realized I'm happier when I'm not drinking. I'm on a health kick. I'm giving up booze, and giving up booze is part of it. I decided alcohol was no longer doing me any favors. These days I feel better when I don't drink. I was no longer having fun with alcohol. Also be aware that your own attitudes can affect how others in your group treat you. Notice if you're feeling smug or judging your friends for their alcohol consumption. Examine your own treatment of non-drinkers in the past. Do you have some of the same assumptions that you're afraid people will place on you? Also notice the actual reactions you receive from your friends. Your fears may be completely unfounded after all. Your decision not to drink may be a total non-issue. Mindful observation is the key to deciding this belief. Can you have as much or more fun and fit in with your friends without alcohol? The answer for me is absolutely yes. I'm betting you'll come to the same conclusion. But don't take my word for it. Test it out yourself. That's day 9. It was a long one, but God, really good stuff there. Again, like I resonate with a lot of what she says here. the times that I've been worried about, like, how people will react to me being sober, usually it's been a non-issue. People have been really, like, just supportive and casual about it, especially when I'm casual, which is not often. I'm rarely casual about a thing. Um, so, I hope that this is helpful for you. Let me know if I can support you. Congratulations on making it to day 9. Tomorrow is day 10. And the title of the chapter is Dealing with Sugar Cravings. I'll see you then. Bye.